In today's video, I'm going to be going over this Novo 18, which is a freestanding wood stove made by Supreme, and they're a Canadian-based company. I really like the look of this stove, but I really couldn't find a lot of information on it on the internet, so I wanted to go ahead and make this video in case any of you are out there are interested in picking one up yourself. I did purchase this online through Woodland Direct. They're an online fireplace supplier, and they have all kinds of different options. They have wood stoves, barbecue grills, pizza ovens, inserts, anything really fire related. They did not sponsor the video, but I had really good customer service with them, so I wanted to give them a shout out. Now, the very first thing I did after getting the wood stove uncrated was to go ahead and get an early fire lit in it. I actually let it go for a couple of hours and just kind of kept stoking it up. And this was to go ahead and burn off any of the factory chemicals, let the paint kind of bake in. But if you do look up anything about new wood stoves, once you do the initial fire, you will notice a strong chemical smell. So it's best to do that outdoors if possible. And for those of you that know me, you know I typically do all of my own DIY, but this was something I wanted to go ahead and trust to the professionals. I'm here in North Carolina, and I used a company called Smoke Rise Chimney Service. Super friendly, came in here and knocked everything out in a day. They cut the hole in the wall, got everything installed. It came with a lot more boxes than anticipated, but I did need a lot of exterior piping because I have a 12-12 roof on the second floor here, and the top of the pipe has to go 3 feet above the top of your roof line to get a proper draw. So I did have a lot of exterior piping. That did increase the cost a bit, but it was well worth it. I've got my clean out tee here to kind of keep everything clean. Then on the other side, we have our black double wall stovepipe. I definitely recommend double wall over single wall, just so you can have some tighter install clearances. And this particular piping is made by Ventus. And for the floor protection, I went with this 16 gauge steel hearth pad from Drolet, and they're also a Canadian company, but this stove didn't call for anything with an R value, so that actually worked out really great. But for us, we didn't want to get a wood stove that was oversized, that was going to run us out of the living room, or something that was so undersized that it just wouldn't heat what we needed. But this one's turned out to be the perfect size. Currently, it's heating an area that's about 1,000 square feet, and it really has worked out well. Keeps everything here about 73 degrees once it gets cooking. This stove can sit straight on the floor, but I went ahead and went with this optional wood storage podium, and it holds a log that's about 20 inches long. Everything that's under there stays cool. Nothing on the sides gets hot, which is actually really nice. From here up, it's going to get hot because that's the main portion of the stove, but anything from this crease down is going to stay room temperature, and that's good if you've got small toddlers or little dogs running around that you don't want to touch a hot stove. So with the double wall piping, I was able to get the stove a little closer to the wall, which is really nice. It doesn't overheat the wall or anything. It's also got a built-in blower. I don't use it often, but it's there if you decide to use that on this particular stove. And the air controls on this model are super easy to use. It's just got 2 levers to deal with. And then here's a shot of it without the top on it, just so you can get a better feel. Basically, when you load wood, you'll push this dial in, and it lets the most air into the chamber as possible. As this heats up, it'll push this lever back, and kind of thus closing off the airflow. And then you've got a plus or minus here that'll allow you to put it all the way to the plus, just to kind of keep it cracked a little. If you have it all the way to the minus and it gets hot enough, it'll shut it down pretty low. But I try to run mine wide open. I haven't really had any issues with that. It's still going to auto adjust on you, but this feature does seem to work really well. Super impressed with it. And this particular model has a internal chimney sweeping cap. It's a cast iron piece here that sits in the top, so make sure you have that installed. It says here that if you don't have it installed properly, it can definitely overheat the stove. And a big question that a lot of people have about wood stoves is, will it hold coals overnight? And the answer to this stove is yes, it will. I had a pretty good sized fire in it yesterday, and then these are the coals that was left overnight. I think I stoked it up sometime around 9 or 10 p.m. and then left it. Having the coals left over makes it a lot easier to start a fire the next morning. All you have to do is just kind of get you a few dry pieces of wood in there. I like to start it off with a little bit of newspaper and then just give it a light and then close it up. And then it's going to start off really well, considering that you have dry wood, and then those coals sitting on the bottom are just going to kind of help get everything warmed up a little bit more quicker than it would normally. And then next thing you know, you're going to have a roaring fire. So super happy with that aspect of the stove. I wasn't sure if it was going to hold coals overnight, but it did really well with it. I think if you threw a bigger piece of wood on at night, you might even have more luck with that. But once you get this thing lit and going, I mean, it'll really just throw some fire at you, and you can really just feel the heat coming off of it. Super awesome stove. The big benefit of this stove is having this big glass area here, but it does get a little dirty, but not very much. It never got black on me, super easy to clean. I just use a little bit of water and some paper towels, honestly, and just kind of give it a wipe and just basically keep it maintained. If you're burning some wet wood, or some wood that's not properly seasoned, you're probably going to get a lot more black on the stove window itself. I just use a little bit of ashes here, some wet paper towel, and just kind of buff it on here, and it'll kind of create a bit of a haze. You can see where you've been, almost like you're waxing a car. Try not to get any of the hard chunks in there, but just keep the just the regular ash on the rag, and it's going to work out really well. Instead of spending money on harsh cleaners, definitely just use that. It's worked really good. Every couple of days, I'll just kind of sit and give it a wipe, and then it really just gets it squeaky clean. And on the interior of this firebox, it's got these super thick cast iron panels that go around the back. I've got the brick pattern showing here. They are reversible. If you were to take them out and spin them around, they have a bit of a fluted pattern, but I really like this classic look. And if you really prefer, when you order, you can get soapstone as opposed to cast iron. And if you're a new stove owner like myself, I definitely recommend getting something like a moisture meter. I picked this one up off Amazon. I'll have a link in the description. This one comes with a little built-in flashlight. Probably something I'll never use, but it's on there if I want it. But it's going to basically measure the moisture content of the wood that you're burning. And this one here is showing up as 6%, which is really dry. This wood actually is pretty dry. It's 2 years old. So what you're looking for in your wood is to be ideally less than 15%. Some people will tell you less than 20 is fine, but at the end of the day, the drier the better. So definitely invest in something like this. It just takes 3 AAA batteries. Another awesome purchase that I made was this WoodStove steamer, and what it is, it's a humidifier. It's cast iron with a porcelain and enamel coating inside, and it's going to keep it from rusting. But what you do is you just put your water in there. You can add some essential oils. You could put some orange peels, cinnamon sticks, anything like that. But it's going to keep your room from drying out, and you're going to definitely want to keep it topped up with water. It's a super nice addition. Or conversely, you could get this miniature lodge pan like I did, and it's the smallest one that they make. And what I've put in there are just these little small wax cubes that you would pick up from Walmart, and they're just going to melt as the stove warms up. So super nice addition. I've got links to both of these in the description, but I think it's just a really nice addition. It looks cool, and it keeps the room smelling awesome. Another cool feature I got was this ash bucket. Typically, if you're going to have a wood stove installed, you're going to need something like this just to kind of keep it cleaned out. I also picked this one up online. It came with a shovel. It's a nice big bucket. It's bigger than it looks like in the listing, so it holds quite a bit of ash, and it's just going to make it to where you can transport those outside safely. But at the end of the day, we were able to run this stove for about 2 months before the heat moved in, which was really awesome. We got to test it out, break it in, make sure it was going to work good for our space, and so we are super happy with it. Currently working on building up our wood supply. As you can see here, I've got quite a bit of it. I've got a little DIY rack here, and I think we're sitting on about 2 cords right now, and this wood's pretty dry, so it should be ready for next year. I cut the majority of this with this new Ego saw. Super impressed with that. I've actually got a video coming out here, probably next, about the highlights of this saw, in case that's something you're looking for. But if you have any questions about this stove, or any questions about the video, the install, anything like that, definitely feel free to drop those in the comments below. I'm always happy to try to get back in touch with everybody as quick as possible. But until the next video, I really appreciate you for tuning in, and I hope to see you on the next one. All right, peace.